My hands were shaking as I stared at my phone. 3 missed calls from Harold, my lawyer. Then a text that made my blood run cold. Eugene, call me now. Don't go to Patricia's house. I mean it. I'm Eugene Patterson, 62 years old, and I was literally putting on my jacket, about to drive to my daughter's place in Ahwatukee for Sunday dinner. Patricia had been so insistent this week. Dad, you never come over anymore. The kids miss you. I'm making your favorite pot roast. How could I say no to that? But Harold's text changed everything. I sat back down on my leather recliner, the one Helen and I picked out 30 years ago when we first bought this house in Paradise Valley. My late wife would know what to do. She always did. But she'd been gone 4 years now, and I'd been navigating this world alone ever since retiring from my Air Force colonel position 2 years ago. 20 years in the military taught me to trust my gut when something felt wrong, and right now every instinct I had was screaming danger. I dialed Harold's number with trembling fingers. Eugene. His voice was tight, professional, but I could hear the concern underneath. Where are you right now? Are you alone? I'm at home, Harold. What's going on? You're scaring me. Good. Stay there. Lock your doors. I'm coming over. We need to talk face to face, and you need to see some documents I received this morning. The drive from Harold's downtown Phoenix office to Paradise Valley usually took 30 minutes, but he made it in 20. When I opened the door, his face was grim. Harold Mitchell had been my lawyer for 15 years, ever since Helen and I bought our first investment property. He'd seen me through her death, my retirement, and countless smaller legal matters. I'd never seen him look this serious. Eugene, sit down, he said, spreading papers across my dining table like they were evidence at a crime scene, which, I suppose, they were. 3 days ago, your daughter Patricia and her husband George filed a petition with the Maricopa County Superior Court. He paused, looking at me with those serious lawyer eyes I'd come to know. They're applying to have you declared mentally incompetent. They want to become your legal guardians and take control of all your assets. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually felt dizzy. That's insane. I'm 62 years old, not 82. I volunteer at the Phoenix VA Medical Center. I manage my own investments. I just renewed my driver's license last month without any issues. My voice was rising, panic creeping in. Why would they do this? Harold slid another document toward me. Because of this. Your house is now worth approximately $1.4 million. Your investment portfolio is valued at $1.6 million. Your military pension and savings bring your total estate to just over $3.8 million. I knew I was comfortable. Helen and I had worked hard, saved carefully, invested wisely. I'd spent 20 years as an Air Force colonel, then another 15 years as a defense contractor before retiring 2 years ago. But hearing it laid out like that, so clinical, so targeted, made my stomach turn. Patricia knows about the house value, I said slowly. We talked about the Phoenix real estate market last Christmas. She joked that I was sitting on a gold mine. It wasn't a joke, Eugene. Harold opened his laptop and turned it toward me. Look at this. Your daughter and George are in serious financial trouble. They bought that 4,000 square foot house in Ahwatukee foothills 3 years ago, $485,000 mortgage. Then George convinced her to invest in his real estate partner's cryptocurrency venture. They lost $350,000. I stared at the screen showing bank statements, credit reports, financial records. How do you know all this? Because their financial situation is part of their petition. They're arguing that they need to protect your assets from your declining mental state before you make irresponsible decisions with your money. And Eugene, he looked at me with something like pity. They've been building a case against you for at least 6 months. My military training kicked in. When under attack, gather intelligence first. Show me everything. He showed me the evidence they'd compiled. Photos of me at Safeway, apparently looking confused in the cereal aisle. I was just trying to find the brand Helen used to buy. A statement from their family doctor, Dr. Thompson, noting that I'd seemed disoriented during a checkup. I'd had a bad cold that day and forgot what medication I was already taking. A recorded conversation where I allegedly couldn't remember my own phone number. I'd been giving them my old number from before I switched to a new provider. Every normal moment of an aging person's life twisted into evidence of incompetence. This is fraud, I said, my voice hollow. This is elder abuse. Yes, it is. And unfortunately, Eugene, it's becoming increasingly common. Adult children going after their parents' estates before they die. The courts are seeing more and more of these cases. Harold closed his laptop. The hearing is scheduled for 2 weeks from now. They moved fast, probably hoping to catch you off guard. What happens if they win? They become your legal guardians. They control your bank accounts, your investments, your house. They can sell your property, move you into assisted living, make all your medical decisions. You'd essentially lose your autonomy completely. Harold leaned forward, his expression deadly serious. And Eugene, based on their financial situation, I'd estimate they'd have your house on the market within 3 months. According to their own calculations in the petition, they expect to clear $915,000 after paying off the mortgage. The house where Helen and I raised Patricia, where we hosted Christmas dinners and birthday parties, where we planted the garden together, where she took her last breath in our bedroom upstairs holding my hand. They can't do this, I whispered. Patricia wouldn't. She's my daughter. Harold's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry, Eugene, but the evidence suggests otherwise. They've been planning this systematically. They waited until after you had that minor fender bender last year. They documented every time you forgot a name or missed an appointment. They've been building a narrative of cognitive decline. I remembered that accident Harold mentioned. I'd been coming home from Home Depot when a teenager ran a red light and scratched my bumper. The police report clearly stated I wasn't at fault. But now I understood why Patricia had been so insistent on coming to all my doctor's appointments after that. Why she'd started taking notes on her phone whenever we talked. She was gathering ammunition against her own father. What do I do? I felt lost, betrayed, angry, and terrified all at once. 20 years in the Air Force had taught me to fight back when under attack, but this was different. This was my own daughter. Harold straightened up, his expression shifting from sympathetic to strategic. We fight back and we fight smart. But Eugene, I need to know, are you prepared for what this might mean? This isn't just a legal battle. This is going to tear your family apart. I thought about Patricia as a little girl. How she'd climb into my lap and ask me to read her bedtime stories. How she'd cried at Helen's funeral, holding on to me like I was her anchor. How she'd told me she loved me just last week. But then I thought about what she was trying to do now. The betrayal, the calculated deception, the willingness to destroy her own father's dignity and independence for money. Tell me what we need to do. Harold smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a lawyer who'd just been given permission to go to war. First, we're going to document everything. Starting now, you're going to keep a detailed journal. What you do every day, who you talk to, every coherent decision you make. I want timestamps, details, evidence that you're of sound mind. Roger that. Second, we're going to get you evaluated by an independent psychiatrist. Not your family doctor who they've already influenced, but a specialist in geriatric mental health. Someone who can testify that you're cognitively sound. Understood. Third, and this is crucial, Eugene, you can't let them know that you know. You need to act normal. If they realize we're onto them, they might accelerate their plans or destroy evidence. That dinner invitation suddenly made horrible sense. They wanted me there tonight for a reason, didn't they? I suspect they planned to have you sign something, maybe a power of attorney document slipped in among other papers. Just some routine financial planning, Dad. Or they might have staged something, recorded you having a confused episode to use as additional evidence. The manipulation was breathtaking. How could she do this to me? The words came out broken, and I realized I was crying. 62 years old, a retired Air Force colonel, and my own child had reduced me to tears. Harold put a hand on my shoulder. I've been practicing law for 25 years, Eugene. I've seen this too many times. Money changes people, or maybe it reveals who they really were all along. Over the next week, I followed Harold's instructions to the letter. My military discipline served me well. I kept detailed journals noting everything from my morning crossword puzzle times to my volunteer shifts at the Phoenix VA Medical Center. Tuesday, completed crossword in 12 minutes, discussed investment strategy with Charles Schwab advisor, drove to VA hospital for 4-hour volunteer shift assisting with veteran benefits claims. I met with Dr. Carol Davis, a geriatric psychiatrist who put me through a battery of cognitive tests. Memory recall, problem solving, attention span, executive function. I approached each test like a mission briefing. Colonel Patterson, Dr. Davis said after our third session, I can state professionally that you show no signs of cognitive decline, dementia, or mental incompetence. Your memory is excellent, your reasoning is sharp, and your judgment is sound. In fact, you're performing better than many people half your age. But the hardest part was pretending everything was normal with Patricia. She called me on Wednesday. Dad, I'm so sorry about Sunday. George's mother had a fall and we had to rush over. Can we reschedule for this weekend? Of course, sweetheart, I said, the endearment tasting like ash in my mouth. Is she okay? Oh, she's fine. You know how dramatic she can be. Patricia laughed. That familiar sound I'd loved my whole life. Actually, Dad, while I have you, George and I wanted to talk to you about setting up a trust. For estate planning, just to make sure everything's organized in case. Well, we're not getting any younger. Even now, even knowing I had a lawyer, even with the court date approaching, she was still trying to manipulate me into giving her legal control. That sounds like a good idea, I said carefully, drawing on every ounce of military training to keep my voice steady. Let me think about it. Don't think too long, Dad. These things are time-sensitive. You never know what might happen. Was that a threat? I couldn't even tell anymore. That night, my grandson Arthur called me. He was 16, a good kid, smart, honest, the kind of young man who made you believe the next generation might be okay after all. Grandpa Eugene, can I come over? I need to talk to you alone. Of course, Arthur. Is everything okay? I need to see you, please. He arrived 20 minutes later on his bicycle, his face flushed from the ride and from something else. Fear, maybe, or anger. Grandpa, I need to show you something, but you have to promise not to tell Mom and Dad that I told you. My heart sank. Military intelligence had taught me that the most valuable intel often came from unexpected sources. Arthur, what is it? He pulled out his phone with shaking hands. I heard them talking last week, Mom and Dad. They didn't know I was home. I was doing homework upstairs and they were in the kitchen. I recorded it. I'm sorry. I know it's wrong, but after I heard what they were saying, I thought you should know. This kid had just demonstrated more integrity and courage than his parents. He'd risked everything to protect his grandfather. Show me, I said. He hit play, and my daughter's voice filled my kitchen, cold and calculating. I'm telling you, George, the hearing is in 2 weeks. Harold Mitchell might be his lawyer, but we have Dr. Thompson's statement. We have the photos. We have everything documented. George's voice responded. What if your dad fights it? With what? We've been systematic. Every instance of forgetfulness, every missed appointment, every time he seemed confused. The judge will see a pattern of cognitive decline, and even if he tries to fight, it'll cost him hundreds of thousands in legal fees. By the time it's over, there won't be much estate left anyway. And if we win? When we win, the house goes on the market immediately. Even in this market, we should clear $915,000 after the mortgage is paid off. That solves our cryptocurrency losses and gets us back to zero. Then we liquidate his investment portfolio, pay off our mortgage, and set up Arthur's college fund. What about your dad? Where will he go? A pause, then Patricia's voice, colder than I'd ever heard it. There's a lovely assisted living facility in Tempe, much cheaper than Paradise Valley. He'll be fine. He won't even know the difference soon enough. Arthur was crying now, silently, tears streaming down his face. Grandpa, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. I love you. And they're talking about you like you're not even a person anymore. I pulled my grandson into a hug. This brave kid who'd just betrayed his own parents to protect his grandfather. You did the right thing, Arthur. You did exactly the right thing. Are they really going to take your house? The house where you and Grandma lived? Not if I can help it, buddy. Not if I can help it. I called Harold immediately. When he heard the recording, he was silent for a long moment. In the background, I could hear him breathing, thinking, calculating. Eugene, this changes everything. This is direct evidence of fraud and elder abuse. With this recording, we don't just defend against their petition, we go on the offense. What do you mean? I mean we're filing a counterclaim. Fraud, attempted financial exploitation of a vulnerable person, conspiracy to commit theft. And Eugene, we're going to make sure every judge in Maricopa County knows exactly what your daughter tried to do. The hearing arrived faster than I wanted it to. I'd been through combat missions that felt less nerve-wracking than walking into that courtroom. Arthur sat beside me, his hand in mine. Across the aisle, Patricia and George sat with their lawyer, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. Patricia wore a black dress that made her look like she was attending my funeral. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Judge Linda Rodriguez presided. She was in her 50s with steel gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen every kind of family betrayal imaginable. Her reputation preceded her, fair but tough, with zero tolerance for elder abuse cases. Patricia's lawyer went first, presenting their case with theatrical sympathy. The photos of me looking confused at Safeway. Dr. Thompson's carefully worded notes about my supposed disorientation. The documentation of my alleged decline. "Your Honor," the lawyer said in practiced tones, "this is a heartbreaking situation. Colonel Patterson is clearly in the early stages of cognitive decline. His loving daughter, Mrs. Rogers, is merely trying to ensure that her father's substantial estate is protected and managed responsibly before he makes decisions that could jeopardize his own financial security and well-being." He painted a picture of Patricia as the devoted daughter, sacrificing her time and energy to care for her failing father. It was masterful manipulation, and I had to admire the performance even as it made me sick. Then it was Harold's turn. "Your Honor, I'd like to present Dr. Carol Davis's psychiatric evaluation completed just last week." He submitted a thick folder. Dr. Davis found no evidence whatsoever of cognitive decline. In fact, Colonel Patterson tested above average for his age group in all areas of mental competence. The judge read carefully, her expression neutral but attentive. "I'd also like to present evidence that Mrs. Rogers and her husband have been systematically documenting normal aging behaviors and presenting them as evidence of incompetence." Harold methodically dismantled every piece of their evidence. The confusion at Safeway. Colonel Patterson was looking for a specific brand of cereal his late wife used to buy. The disorientation at Dr. Thompson's office. He had influenza with a fever of 101 degrees. The forgotten phone number. He'd recently changed providers and was still adjusting to the new number. Harold's military precision was beautiful to watch. Every attack was planned. Every piece of evidence was strategic. "But, Your Honor, most importantly, I have evidence of the true motive behind this petition." He played Arthur's recording. In the silent courtroom, Patricia and George's voices echoed, cold and calculating, discussing my estate like I was already dead. "When we win, the house goes on the market immediately. We should clear $915,000 after the mortgage is paid off. That solves our cryptocurrency losses and gets us back to zero. Then we liquidate his investment portfolio, pay off our mortgage, and set up Arthur's college fund. What about your dad? Where will he go? There's a lovely assisted living facility in Tempe. Much cheaper than Paradise Valley. He'll be fine. He won't even know the difference soon enough." The judge's expression hardened with each word. When the recording ended, you could hear a pin drop in that courtroom. Harold continued, his voice carrying the authority of a man who'd just delivered a knockout blow. "Your Honor, this isn't a loving daughter protecting her father. This is a premeditated attempt at financial exploitation. Mrs. Rogers and her husband are in severe financial distress due to bad investments. They stand to gain over $3.8 million by having Colonel Patterson declared incompetent. They've manipulated medical records, staged photographs, and built a false narrative, all to steal their own father's life savings." Patricia's lawyer stood quickly, his composure finally cracking. "Your Honor, this recording was obtained without my client's knowledge or consent. It's inadmissible. In a criminal trial, perhaps," Judge Rodriguez cut him off, "but this is a civil proceeding regarding guardianship, and I'm very interested in understanding the motivations behind this petition." She turned to Patricia, and for the first time in months, my daughter was forced to look directly at me. "Mrs. Rogers, would you like to explain to me why you're discussing selling your father's house and liquidating his assets while he's sitting in this courtroom, clearly of sound mind?" Patricia opened her mouth, but no words came out. I watched my daughter, the little girl I'd taught to ride a bike, who I'd walked down the aisle at her wedding, struggle to find words that could explain the inexplicable. "Your Honor," she finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper, "that recording was taken out of context. We were just discussing hypothetical estate planning. Hypothetical estate planning that involves putting your father in an assisted living facility in Tempe while you pocket nearly $1 million from selling his home." The judge's voice was ice cold. "Mrs. Rogers, I've been on this bench for 15 years. I know financial elder abuse when I see it." Judge Rodriguez looked at the papers in front of her for what felt like an eternity. The silence in that courtroom was deafening. I could hear my own heartbeat, Arthur's nervous breathing beside me, and somewhere behind me, Patricia's quiet sobbing. Then she looked up, first at me, then at Patricia and George, her decision written clearly on her face. I'm dismissing this petition with prejudice, which means it cannot be refiled. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order. Mrs. Rogers and Mr. Rogers are prohibited from contacting Colonel Patterson or coming within 100 meters of his residence for a minimum of 2 years. The gavel came down like thunder. I'm also referring this case to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office for potential criminal charges of fraud and elder abuse. She turned to me, her expression softening slightly. Colonel Patterson, I'm deeply sorry for what you've experienced. No parent should have to endure what your daughter has put you through. I'm ordering that all legal fees associated with your defense be paid by the petitioners. Additionally, I'm recommending that you consider updating your estate plan to protect yourself from any future attempts at manipulation. Patricia was crying now, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of someone who'd just lost everything and was finally realizing the magnitude of their mistake. "Dad, please," she called out as the court adjourned. "Dad, you have to understand." I turned to look at her one last time. My daughter, the little girl I'd taught to ride a bike, who I'd walked down the aisle at her wedding, who I'd thought I'd known better than anyone in the world. I understand perfectly, Patricia. I understand that you were willing to destroy me for money. I understand that you saw your own father not as a person, but as an estate to be liquidated. I understand that the mother you claimed to love so much would be ashamed of what you've become. Arthur squeezed my hand. My grandson, who'd had the courage to do what was right, even when it meant betraying his own parents. "Grandpa, can we go home now?" "Yes, Arthur. Let's go home." As we walked out of the courthouse into the bright Phoenix sunshine, Harold walked beside me. "Eugene, that was incredibly difficult. How are you feeling?" "Honestly, I don't know." I looked down at Arthur. "But I know that not all family is blood, and not all blood is family. I lost a daughter today, but I gained the knowledge that I raised at least one person with integrity." That evening, sitting in my house in Paradise Valley, the house Helen and I built our life in, I called my lawyer one more time. "Harold, I need to update my will. The house, the investments, everything. I want to set up a trust for Arthur's education and future. Patricia gets nothing. Not Waller. She made her choice. Are you sure, Eugene? That's permanent. I'm very sure. And Harold, I want it explicitly stated why. I want the will to detail exactly what she tried to do, so that if she ever tries to contest it, a judge will know the full story. Consider it done." Arthur moved in with me a week later. His parents had kicked him out when they realized he'd recorded them. 16 years old, and they'd chosen money over their own son. But I had a big house and a bigger heart, and Arthur needed someone who'd put him first. We established a new routine that brought life back to the house. Breakfast together before school, Arthur telling me about his classes and his plans for college. Homework at the dining table where Helen used to pay bills. Arthur's textbooks spreading across the mahogany surface. Weekend trips to Sedona and Flagstaff, showing him the Arizona I'd learned to love during my years at Luke Air Force Base. Arthur helped me in the garden, planting vegetables where Helen used to grow her roses. His young energy balanced my experience, and together we created something new from the soil Helen had loved. "Grandpa," he asked one Saturday morning as we were pulling weeds, "do you think you'll ever forgive her?" "Mom, I mean." I sat back on my heels, considering the question carefully. 20 years in the military had taught me about forgiveness, about carrying grudges, about the weight of anger. Forgiveness isn't about them, Arthur. It's about not letting their actions poison what's left of your life. Do I forgive what your mother tried to do? No. Will I ever have a relationship with her again? Probably not. But I won't spend my remaining years consumed by bitterness. I've got too much living left to do. And now I've got you to help me do it. 6 months later, Arthur and I stood in the garden together, looking at the newly installed plaque near Helen's favorite rose bush. Her name, her dates, and a quote we'd chosen together. "Family is not always blood. It's the people who stand by you when everyone else walks away." "Do you think Grandma would have liked this?" Arthur asked. "I think your grandmother would have loved it, and she would have been so proud of you." My phone rang. It was Harold. "Eugene, I thought you should know." The county decided to file charges. Patricia and George pled guilty to attempted fraud. They received suspended sentences and 2 years probation, but it's on their record now. And it means it's really over. They can't come back from this. Your estate is secure, your autonomy is protected, and you can live the rest of your life in peace. I looked at Arthur, who was carefully watering the vegetables we'd planted together. My grandson who'd saved me, who I got to save in return. Thank you, Harold, for everything. That night, as Arthur did his homework and I read beside him, I realized something important. Patricia had tried to take everything from me. My home, my money, my dignity, my independence. But what she'd actually done was show me what really mattered. Not the house worth $1.4 million, though I was grateful to keep it. Not the investment portfolio or the bank accounts. What mattered was sitting across from me, chewing his pencil as he worked through calculus problems, asking me questions about physics that made me think harder than I had in years. Family wasn't about blood or obligation or inheritance. It was about the people who showed up when everything fell apart. It was about a 16-year-old kid who'd risked everything to do the right thing. It was about second chances and new beginnings. Helen used to say that people show you who they really are when there's something to lose. Patricia showed me she was willing to sacrifice her father for financial security. But Arthur showed me that courage and integrity could still exist in the youngest generation, even when it cost him everything. I'm 62 years old, and I've learned more in the past year than I did in my previous 20 years in the Air Force. I've learned that trust is earned, not given. I've learned that the people who claim to love you the most can sometimes be the ones who hurt you the deepest. I've learned that real love isn't about what you say. It's about what you do when no one's watching. Most importantly, I've learned that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. That vulnerability isn't weakness. That asking for help is courage. That fighting back against those who would take advantage of you isn't vindictive. It's self-preservation. To anyone out there who might be facing something similar, let me tell you this. If someone in your family is trying to declare you incompetent, to take control of your life, to steal what you've worked for, fight back. Get a lawyer. Document everything. Trust your instincts. And remember that you have value beyond your bank account, worth beyond your assets. You're not crazy. You're not confused. You're not paranoid. If someone is systematically trying to undermine your competence, it's because they want something from you, not for you. As for me, I've got a grandson to raise, vegetables to grow, and a lot of life left to live. The house in Paradise Valley isn't just an asset worth millions anymore. It's home. It's where Arthur is learning to be a man of integrity. It's where memories of Helen still linger in every corner. It's where justice was served and family was redefined. And that's worth more than all the money in the world.